Close, huh? I thought I was reading it properly, but anyways, okay. Yeah, so President of Women's Federation Europe, right? Mitty, Toma, yeah. This is Mitty, Toma. I'd like to invite you up. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sorry, I took the meeting first.
Oh, all right, sure. Invite up Joyce. Okay. Come on.
Designated for the meeting. Okay, so it's from the Chambu Mogyon, book 1, Two Parents at Advent and the Era of Two Parents, chapter 2. So this is father talking about mother. One of mother's special qualities is that she's intuitive. This is an inborn quality. Further, whenever I ask her to do something, she makes a firm resolution to fulfill it. Then she never forgets that resolution until it is done. That is why she has been able to overcome every trial on her path. She has perseverance and patience for God's purpose. Another reason I am very grateful to mother is that she is very giving. She always wants to give away her most precious possessions, not only to our own children, but also to all of you, at any time and without hesitation. I believe that this trait of her personality is a God-given gift. Mother needed to give birth to at least 12 children within a span of 20 years in order to completely restore Jacob's family through paying indemnity. In my time, in order to overcome that problem, mother gave birth to at least 12 children within a 20-year period. Had she not succeeded in this, she could not have fulfilled her mission as true mother. From this point of view, you can see that no one more than 20 years old could have fulfilled the position of true mother. Just as I embarked on that path for the will at the age of 16, a woman had to meet that standard at around the same age. Otherwise, she would have no way to bring about the liberation of women. Throughout history, there was no woman who was willing to suffer through all kinds of miserable situations and still support her husband through even more difficulties, continually and without complaint. If there were a woman who suffered through such hardships and then said, standing before the will, I have nothing but gratitude, that woman would be able to comfort us when we felt discouraged.
Guys, give it up for
Speaking.
I know you're very slim. Hi, good morning, everybody. So nice to be here in Ireland, and brothers and sisters online. Yeah, where's the camera? Oh, there it is. Hi, everybody. Just want to say hi to Pat. Hi, Pat and Halvard, because Pat was my first center leader in New Hope team. So, yeah, and I just want to say, a few words of about Abigail. Yeah. I'm really, I knew Abigail. One time she came to London with Pat, and that was the first time I met her. And she came for an audition or something for a film. And then just recently I met her when she came to visit Victor as well. So it's such a nice time to see Abigail. So I wish Abigail a safe transition. And we know she was very loved and she was a beautiful person. So Pat and Halvard, I feel a lot. Yeah, perhaps I can meet you sometime. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to say that. Yeah, so this reading I chose was, just this talk about how father really loves true mother, and, there's all this discussion about mother. Is she, the only begotten daughter, and she's declaring these things, and think, gosh, and you can see, father's heart has always been loyal towards true mother, and mother is also so, had to follow father's directions. It's not easy to give birth to 12 children at such a tender age. And because she's now asserting herself a little bit more to come to the forefront, even though for 50 years she followed father in the background, but, she was with father from the beginning and going through all those difficult times. So, I just felt I wanted to mention that because many of our members have doubt about true mother. And I think that needs to be kind of thrown out the window, really, if you really research and think about True Parents course. And if there are many conspiracies or, people making up stories because they're just looking from their own viewpoint and losing, God's viewpoint and the principle of restoration and how God prepared the foundation through history to have a Messiah on this earth. And we're actually very privileged, especially as first generation, to have the opportunity to meet true parents in our lives, especially true father, and then of course second generation and now third generation are coming, and that lineage is just going to multiply. So yeah, I felt it was really important just to mention that. Yesterday I met up with a number of sisters, which was really nice because of course I'm taking care of the Women's Federation in Europe and also in the UK, but for me that's secondary. Actually, more important is brothers and sisters. I think that's what we're all about, really. We have positions, we have status, but that's secondary. My husband always says to me, don't forget, you're just the same as everybody else. So don't let any positions come in the way and try and be something you're not. So I also agree with that. And many of you, or some of you, have walked paths together, like Pat. She was the one who really, when I joined the church, she was the one who really grounded me into the principle, because she's got a fantastic way of teaching and telling the stories in the principle about like Abraham and Jacob and Cain and Abel and Lucifer, all these kind of things, the characteristics and how they can be relatable to us. It's not something in the Bible or it's just in the principle, but how does it affect us, and how the four fallen natures start playing on us as well. Yeah, I thought maybe I could talk a little bit about the Heavenly Parents, Holy Community, what true parents, what it means to me, why is this being declared? Why Father? Of course, we have the Family Federation, first the Holy Spirit Association, then Unification Church, and then, the different processes. And finally, it was declared the Heavenly Parents, Holy Community, because we had enough foundation. For me, being a Sikh, my background is Sikh. Who knows about Sikhs? Hands up. Okay, a number of you, they wear the turbans and long beards, and women cover themselves, but not totally. Yeah, and very family orientated. And I met the church when I was 18 or 17 was when I met the church. Before that, I had one best friend, and her name's Lorraine. We went to the same primary school, actually went to the same nursery school, primary school, and secondary school. We were really good friends. And then I went to college, and she went, we lost contact for about a year and a half. I couldn't get in touch with her. I tried to go through, phone her parents, and they didn't know where she was as well. And then just by chance, when I was going shopping, I met her on the street, and I thought, oh, you disappeared out of my life for a year and a half. And this is, why didn't you contact me? And then she started to tell me, oh, I met this group. I said, oh, a group. And then she says, yeah, this Christian group, and they're teaching me all these things about Lucifer, and I'm Sikh. I don't know anything about Lucifer. And about the fall, and Adam and Eve, look what they did, they destroyed God's heart and things like that. She's telling me all these things. Of course, I grew up in a Church of England school, and we had assemblies, we had hymns and messages, Bible stories and things like that. But of course, I wasn't very well versed in the Bible, but then she was kind of trying to convert me and educate me there and then. And she said, he caused the fall, and that's why, communism is here. And I thought, wow, from Lucifer to communism. And she said, the world is deteriorating and we've got to do something, Oh, okay. Now I was just plodding along doing shopping, but, she was telling me all this. I said, maybe you should come to my house and we can have sit down and talk about these things. And then she started to talk more deeply about it. And unfortunately, she was in the church for about maybe 8 months. And then her mother, she was the head of FAIR. I don't know if anyone knows. It's like anti-cult. So they took her out of the church, you know, and deprogrammed her, as they say. And then, but she was never negative. She never said anything bad about the church or about father or mother, you know. So she never discouraged me, or she didn't encourage me to go. But she said, yeah, you know, this is the truth that I found, but because of my parents, and it's a real pressure to stay in the church. So she left the church. And then, okay, then we just continued with our friendship. And then about 4 months later, I was living in Birmingham that time. And 4 months later, I went to a library, public library in the Birmingham city centre. And these two men started approaching me, an English and at that time, it was Italian. And then they said, oh, you ever thought of purpose of life? Or have you ever thought of life after, you know, this world? And I was like, yeah. And then it kind of clicked. They were kind of talking about, you know, do you think about God? And then I said, are you from the Unification Church? They said, yes. And I said, oh, okay. So that somehow my friend Lorraine kind of prepared me a little bit, and that was just random. I met them, these two brothers witnessing at that time. And I was working at that time as well. And because I come from a very strict Orthodoxy family, and they said, well, would you like to come and listen to the principal? I says, okay, I only have lunch hour. I only have an hour break where I can come, you know, and then I have to go back to work and I have to be at home at a certain time. And so I used to start going to the video center and start listening to the principal. Sometimes I was just there and one lecturer and just sitting there for listening, and he was teaching me, and yeah, it was good. But I think I was more attracted to the atmosphere because they were Italians, you know what the Italians are like. They're all sunshine and singing, and the heart is open, and I really enjoy that atmosphere. And of course, some of the principal went into me as well. And then there was I think I continued for a couple of months going every lunchtime. And then step by step, I thought, gosh, I think I would like to investigate a little bit more. Not that I was ever looking for God. I never looked for God. Perhaps it was the other way. God was kind of looking for me, but I was never looking for God, because I grew up in a family. We had this kind of tradition, Sikhs. We went to the temple, you know, every Sunday, and my father did Honda-K kind of style, you know, reading the Sikh scriptures at night time, and we would sit around, and not that I understood very much, but we just sat around with our parents. And so it wasn't something that I was familiar with God, but I wasn't really looking for. But what I did want to do was live a life for others. That's what I really wanted to do. So I wanted to join the police force, and then I thought maybe I'll join the army, because at least I can serve others and do something. But that was out of our remit, because being a Sikh girl, you're in a subservient position. You're not allowed to have thoughts. You're not allowed to be ambitious. And so I've got 4 brothers and 2 sisters. I'm number 5. And yeah, so we were only allowed to go to school, come back, and never allowed to go to any parties, or not allowed to smoke, drink, or have boyfriends and things like that. So it's a very kind of sheltered life. But that was fine, because that's how it was. We grew up like that. And then the fact that I'd met the principal, and that's why I couldn't let my parents know, because they would have, I don't know if anyone knows about honor crime. Yeah, have you heard of honor crime? Oh, yeah, because they were very strict, very, very strict. So but just because I'd heard the principal, it was difficult for me to go back to that life, and I felt there was some kind of calling. I think it was 80% was my ancestors started to push me to pursue it more. But the only thing is that you couldn't join the church like an associate member, or, you know, a little bit here and dip into the church. You couldn't in those days. You had to be a full-time, you had to go to the workshop and join, you know, give up everything and join. And that was a huge decision for me, you know, to join, to give up my whole culture, to give up everything. I knew it. And at 18, I had to think seriously. It was like a fork in the road path, you know, either you choose this way, you choose that way. But something in myself wouldn't allow me to go back into the way I was before. And So I decided to make the commitment to join the church, at least go to the workshops, and because I wasn't allowed to stay over at friends' house, we were just at home, and that was it. And so I decided to go to a 2-day workshop, but actually I couldn't tell my parents, they would have sent me to India and got me married off there and then, yeah, that's how it is, if you kind of deviate a bit, they just clamp down on you. So I had to make a plan, a secret plan. And so I bought myself a suitcase. I left it in the church center, and every lunchtime, in morning time, I take a few clothes in my bag, and I'd go to the church center and put my clothes there. And then once the suitcase was full, I thought, that's it, ready. I have to leave, and then it was a huge thing for me, so yeah, so I wrote a note the night before I was going to leave. And of course, it was so painful because I knew once I decide to go, I can never come back to my home. Otherwise, there's consequences, they may kill me, so there was no going back. That was it. So I wrote a note, I put it on my pillow, and I went around the house and said goodbye to all my rooms, because it's my childhood home. I lived there all my life, and all my memories were there and everything. And then, of course, my father had already gone to work. And then I left the note there, and I went around the bedroom, all the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and said thank you. And this is the last time. And of course, when I went downstairs, my mum was there just doing the regular thing, cooking breakfast and things like that. And that was the most painful thing for me, to see my mum, because they didn't know what's coming to them. So in a sense, to say goodbye to my mum, not physically, but spiritually, that was it. That's the end, of our kind of relationship. It was kind of absolute at that time. So that was the most painful experience for me, and my brothers and sisters as well, to say goodbye to them internally, And then I walked out the door and walked up the street, to the bus stop, and I was crying and crying and crying, and thought, that's it. I can never look back. I just have to keep moving forward. And then, yeah. And, usually I'd had, when I was working, I'd have to be home by 6 o'clock on the dot. If I was late 10 minutes, my mum would question me, did you meet somebody? Was there some boys there or something? So when I was at the center, that I wasn't going to go back home. And I thought, gosh, that's going to crush my parents, And I kind of ran away basically from home. And yeah, there was this really kind of painful experience to go this path, So yeah. Then I, when I wrote it on this note, was that I'm going to join a Christian group. So please don't worry, I'm going to be all right. Of course, as a parent, you worry. Where are you? You haven't come back home. They phoned the police, they phoned the Salvation Army. They didn't know what to do. Where am I? Suddenly disappeared. And then, then I was sent off to a 2-day workshop, 7-day workshop, and 21-day workshop, one after the other. I didn't get in touch with my parents at all during that time, just focused on the principle. And yeah, I kind of got a lot out of that. I think I was just naive, quite zealous, and I was going to have a new life, and the principle's wonderful, and it was, but I just didn't think about my parents. I was just thinking about myself. But I think that was the only way I could join the church. If I'd looked back, I think, and I felt there was no way back anyway, because that's how it was, these honor-based crime, you shamed us, you're not allowed to come back. So I just moved on. And then our national leader's wife said, actually, you have to go back to your parents. I was mortified. Go back? How can you? They'll kill me. Mm-hmm. And he says, you have to go back, you have to, because at that time we had some persecution, by the Daily Mail and breaking up families and things like that. I said, I can't. And then I just had to trust. And I said, if I go back, I have to go back with somebody. Otherwise, I don't know if I'll ever be able to come back, So Jenny Lambert, she came with me. She was at IW at that time. And I phoned my father, and our family is not the touchy-feely family, you know, hugging and things like that. We're not like that. We knew we were loved, you know, but just we knew our place. And so Jenny drove me back to Birmingham, and my father was waiting at the doorstep, you know. He was waiting for me to come, and then he ran towards me and hugged me. And I thought, whoa, he says, why did you do that? Why, you know, I was so worried about you and things like that. And he says, come in, and also to Jenny, come in. And then, of course, you know, I was full of it. I was full of principle, you know, like my friend. I was talking about Lucifer, or the archangel. I was telling them, you know, communism is here and we got to do something, you know. And I wasn't even ever talked about religion before, or God, you know. And I was thinking, God is real, you know, and the Messiah's here. And definitely brainwashed in my parents' eyes. And then, of course, you know, it was just painful. It was just painful for them to see me like that, even though I was full of, you know, vitality and in myself, actually. And then Jenny had to go, and then my dad said, just stay a few days. And I said, okay, maybe it's good, you know, to kind of explain to them why I did what I did. But actually, we were on different levels. You know, my parents were worried about me, and of course brainwashed, and you know, they knew about the Moonies and things like that. Gosh. And then they became a bit more hard, you know. They were softer in the beginning, they became more hard and more like didn't want me to go out of the house, you know. After 3 days, they said, no, you can't, you have to stay here. And then, oh gosh, so I ran, you know, I had my own room, so I went to my bedroom and I kind of locked myself in the bedroom and didn't come out for 3 days, you know. Started kind of fasting, and by that time I already knew about 7-day fast, 3-day fast, that it was quite a condition one has to make, you know. But for my parents, they didn't know that, so they were getting worried that I wasn't eating, you know, and they wanted me to eat. They were desperate that I could eat some food. I says, only on the condition you let me go, you know. So then finally my father says, yes, you can go, and because he was worried. But then eventually he says, if you leave this time, you're never allowed to come back. He says, you can never come back to us. And like the door was shut, that was it. He says, if you try to come back, I'll kill you. And I don't care if I go to prison, I'll shoot you there and then. I was, oh God, I can't, you know, but I just couldn't stop. I had to keep moving forward. I couldn't go back, you know, to my parents, my old life, you know. I wanted to move forward. I'd already had the principle, and it was true, you know. And the spirit world was pushing me as well, you know, I have to keep moving forward. Don't go back. So that was it. I left again. And this time I wasn't too emotional. I knew there was a purpose that I was going forward towards, you know. And I went to the center. I went to the first, wasn't a New Hope Team Center, but it was like for young members who just joined, you know, after doing these workshops. And the first center leader was an Irish sister called Mary White. I don't know if you know Mary. Who knows Mary White? Yeah. She was my center leader. She kind of looked after me for, not me, but the team for 6 months. And then I was sent to Hull, where Pat was the center leader. Wow, that was really great. Fun, you know, this beautiful place in the countryside, huge, it's called Hull. I don't know if you've been there. It's really, really nice. And I thought, wow, this fantastic place. And then I saw Pat, and you know, she's a center parent there, and she was amazing. I thought she had everybody rallied around, and she's doing fundraising and educating us, and really, really amazing. Of course, I was a bit afraid of Pat's a little. Oh gosh, Pat is really straight, you know. But actually, I really love Pat actually, because she just sorted me out as well. You know, I was kind of mixed up and coming with my own ideas, and Pat really was great actually. We had such a great time with this New Hope team. And then after, I think we were there for about a year. And then, you know, it's like when you have to go on MFT and then they say, oh, you know, it's time, you know, to go on a little training course for about 40 days, you know, let's go 40 days. and then went on an MFT, but we were thinking after 40 days, I'll be back in, in Hull, because we had such a nice vibe there, I was very happy to go back, but actually 40 days became 7 years, actually fundraising, never went back, so it was just kind of course, I learned my trade there as well through fundraising. But the thing I want to talk about is like going back, about my parents restoring this relationship, because it was completely, the wall was there now. And in my heart of hearts, I knew I had to go back. And also then the national leader's wife again, Mrs. Abe, she says, you have to go back, you have to restore your family. And that was actually, that was entirely my choice this time. And I felt it was the right thing to do. Even though at the risk of my life, I thought I have to do it. So I tried to find a way, how am I going to go back? So I started writing to them, used to send gifts to them, whether they received them or not. And I didn't buy any cheap old stuff. I bought something nice, whether they liked it or not, it was up to them. And I went to the door. I went from London to Birmingham, and I was really scared. First time I went alone, and they wouldn't open the door. And the curtains were twitching, you could see, they knew I was there at the doorstep, and they wouldn't open it. And then, of course, I went back on the train crying and left a gift at the doorstep. And then I tried again. And then, over the years, I kept trying and trying, to knock on the door, but they would never open it. And so then I, of course, went to the blessing. I had my children, but continuously 2 or 3 times a year, I would still try. And I just felt each time I'd go back crying, but I'd pray at the doorstep as well, I'd pray that the opportunity may come one day that they could forgive me, And then by that time I had 3 children and my husband, and I'd always push the children in the front with the gifts, my husband and me at the back, because I was scared, I was scared as well. So, yeah, and then one day, for some reason, I don't know, this is like 15 years of trying, actually, 15 years of continuously 2 or 3 times a year going. And then for some reason, the door opened. My father opened the door, maybe by mistake, or he just, I don't know why he opened the door, but there he was, standing in front of the children, my husband and me. And then I was shocked. The first thing, oh my gosh, my dad's become so old, actually. And I started crying because I thought, gosh, I'm sure I contributed to him, being so, like, I don't know, I was crying. And then he said, well, what do you want? I said, I want to come in. And I says, I want to come and see. And then he didn't know what to do, but this was the first time I'd seen face to face, It was just wonderful as well, to see my dad after so many years. And then he said, and then he didn't know what to do. And he just shouted to my mum, she's here, what shall I do, My mum started swearing. Oh, I don't know. I don't know why she was swearing, but anyway. I said, oh gosh. And then he said, oh, come on, and just come in. And then I went in. I was just delighted to be back in my own childhood home, I never imagined that he would just melt and things would just, fall into place again. And it gave me a lesson, because I followed a formula course, a formula of restoration that Father taught us about these 7 stages, I don't know if you know, like servant of servant, and then you have to become a servant, and then, or this adopted child, and then, these stages that you have to go through. And I felt in the beginning, I was like a servant. I didn't belong to my parents. They weren't mine. And I had to, even if I had to have abuse or shouting at me, I had to accept it, I had no voice. And then gradually, I could come to that point where you could open the door and allow me to come in. So I was really amazed by our true parents, the formula or the methods that they've given us to overcome, any barriers, anything that stops us from communicating with each other as well. You can use these formulas. sometimes like having my own viewpoint, I have to throw everything away, even my, the truth, the principle. There's no way I could talk about when you let me in, there was no way I was going to talk about the principle, I wasn't going to say a word about communism or about Lucifer. So I was quiet, and I wanted them to get everything out. So, but that was a victory. And I'm so glad I did it, I'm so glad, because maybe about, I think 5 or 6 years later, my parents passed. But I tell you, I never regret that I did that. It was a hard course, but that's a victory and a treasure that I can keep forever. And also my children could experience their grandparents as well. And it's really important to give that to the children. Yeah. I just want to, why I'm saying that, it's not about me, but it's about the principle. It is about father and true parents, and how they've educated us, and how important it is to go into the principle and find the secrets that father's kept, and used in his life, to overcome obstacles and difficulties, and to practice those things. Like, I think the spirits told me that's it. Yeah, that's enough. Yeah, it's really nice to be here. Honestly, I'm so happy. Thank you. And I'm sorry I can't see. I'm sure there's elder members as well, online, and Vicky and Pat and Halvard and others. Yeah, it would be nice one day to meet. Anyway, thank you very much. That's what we thank you.